gang's all here, because, yeah, we're all here and accounted for and appreciate the breakfast, and we appreciate the preparation. So Valerie, Kina, and Bonnie, and all of that. Charles, thank you so much for having us here this morning to begin the budget process and to just have an overview of some of where we are at this point in our city to date. I did have some calls yesterday. I don't know if you all did. That people really thought we were going to begin the budget process today, and they wanted to be present. So I said, well, you can, be present, but we are getting, the big view today. Actually, in March, there will be the kickoff. I think it's the 12th. 13th. No, I looked at my calendar, so I did inform them correctly. So that's when that will begin. But today we are, I guess you can say it's the precursor. Not to belabor this introduction and welcome to everyone. I did want you all to know, for those who were unable to go, and I know jobs are calling all of us, we were, 4 of us, able to go to the General Assembly and present our agenda in person. Our representatives were so kind. They were so busy, from Delegate Kathy Byron to Delegate Scott Garrett to Senator Mark Peake and to Senator Steve Newman. They were so busy, there were lines waiting outside their office, but they made a moment for us. They took our picture and they listened to some of our agenda items. They had reviewed them. And Senator Peake and Senator Newman, we went to the Senate Gallery, introduced us. So I don't know, Councilmember Wilder, Councilmember Dolan, Vice Mayor Tweedy, and myself all traveled down some ungodly hour in the morning. We left here 6:37, but it was a nice day. And probably didn't get home till after 9 o'clock last night, because we did go to the VML presentations as well. And we also invited to see Secretary Valentine and Secretary Kerry to tell them how proud we were. We were Lynchburg proud that they were in the office. And I did shake hands with the governor as we were hurrying and scurrying from one building to another. And some of our meetings lasted a little longer. And we did miss the introduction from Governor Northam, VML, opening session, but we did see him as we were going out and shook his hand, and we were the delegation from Lynchburg. I think that all of them took pictures and put them on their Facebook, so it has been documented, I'll say. I don't know if you all want to add anything. We did talk about the GLT funding. We talked about some of the items that are just near and dear to our heart as we presented our agenda to them. And they were well aware of them. I think you called and met with most of them. I know you and I met personally and connected with Senator Peake. And Senator Newman is going to get back with us on several issues. And we found Senator Newman just to he's a seasoned person down there. He's been there for a while. He knows the gig. I'll put it that way. And he was very helpful. And I know that was reiterated by Secretary Kerry, how helpful he had been in the whole process of acclimating to Richmond. So when you see him next time, thank you. Very gracious, all of them are very gracious. Yes, ma'am.
No, they were very gracious and very receptive to our thoughts on the different topics we brought up. And also we made Bonnie do some follow-up with them on a couple of things that they said if we just kind of followed up with notes on some things to them. So we'll talk to you about that later.
And Senator Newman is something you'll probably hear from his office.
No, I think it pretty well. It was a great day, and everything was really accommodating. And you're right about how busy everybody was.
service lines. I mean, everybody's storing just kind of got into it and sat down with it. And it was a very, very good day.
I had been in DC for the school board for their National Day. So it was different going for the city council to the state of the Central. It was similar, but again, it was like that. It was sad, it was so fast paced. We have everybody there from city councils to various other organizations. I think Food Line was there, and it was just massive people. And just in and out of meetings, people were meeting with the legislators. So it was good to see government in action.
But what you do hear from everyone, it's all about the budget.
Yes. And the VML, it's just, it depends on so much that is present in the General Assembly, whether there'll be enough money for a lot of items. And they haven't, I guess, done the crossover. So, welcome, and I'm going to turn it now over to Bonnie. And thank you again for the breakfast.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Today really is a continuation of the conversation that we began back in November when we met over in the Bank of James building at the Local Government Council board conference room. And we presented to you what our very preliminary revenue picture looked like then. Donna is going to brief you on what it looks like now and what our basis for moving towards balancing the budget looks like. But prior to that, I wanted to just talk with you a little bit, I'm not going to read them, about the highlights of all of our department's accomplishments and challenges during the past year, because I think that helps form a foundation as we go forward in terms of the needs of departments. Again, I'm not going to go through and read all of these. I asked the department heads to provide me with a bulleted list of what their major accomplishments were during last calendar year, and they did that. And I have to tell you that I'm extraordinarily proud of the work that everybody has done. And sprinkled throughout almost every department is some kind of award that we have been recognized for because of the good work that staff is doing. So you have that. I hope you took time to digest it. And again, I could not be prouder of what our departments are doing with, narrowing and fewer resources. The next part of what I asked them for were what did they see as their challenges and their gaps and what keeps them up at night. And while I didn't include for you everything that keeps them up at night, I did include most of what they shared with me, and I think there were three themes throughout most of the departments. And the three themes were staffing requirements, just having the same staffing that they have had for so long and being asked to deliver more and more and be more resourceful with the staffing that they do have. Pay issues, we are trying to address that through the funding that council agreed to during the last budget cycle. We are in the middle, I would say, of our salary market study with the national firm Korn Ferry Hay. We expect those results in the next couple of months. Those will address citywide market issues. I'm hoping because of the work that has already been done with various departments, police, public works, parks and recreation, and social services, that we will be more in line with the market than not, but we won't know that until we get the results of that study. So market is an issue, market pay is an issue, and retention and recruitment are the other challenges. You will see as we get more into the submitted expenditure reductions the departments have given to us, that in one instance particularly, we didn't have enough money, and I'll just share, I'll preempt later. Council approved a position in the Commissioner of Revenue's office for us to do more audits and we advertised for that position, and we did not have enough funding to fill that position at the pay that the universe of applicants were looking for. So recruitment and retention is critical, which goes back to the pay issue. And we are, so I can see,
Yes, and I'm sorry.
That's
It's a
okay.
conversation because I've wondered often about Walter's office as well. I know I did go in and see the petition of
Yep.
that person's office would be, but is that has not happened, has it?
so the new office has been built within the city attorney's office for that new assistant city attorney position that you approved last year with funding available January 1st. So Walter, they have received applications and they are going through them. But in the request for reductions, that is a reduction, again, key word here that I need the media to understand, and I need all of you to understand, is submitted reductions. Not any part of any proposal at this point, just submitted to comply with the managers, with my direction to provide us with a roughly 2% reduction. So you might hear me say that again and again because I want to make sure that everyone understands they are submitted and not proposed. Doesn't mean that they will end up in the proposed budget. So those were the themes. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the accomplishments and challenges memo that I sent to you. And if I can't answer them, if it's a more technical question, I'll get an answer from the department head. I did not invite them to be here because I didn't think it was the best use of their time.
So under police department, I didn't see basically retention. So that's not a concern.
It is. If you look under compensation, it says some examples include experienced officers leaving the city to start careers in house building, construction, contracting, and private security contracts. So there is a retention issue in the police department.
So it's not a concern that we've got young officers training younger officers.
It's a concern, sure. I think the chief would absolutely say it's a concern.
Okay. That's what keeps me up at night.
And we did address and make some adjustments for mid-level police officers. Last fall, we came to you and asked for funding for that. Any other questions on this before we start digging deeper into what our revenues look like and talk with you about the landscape of the submitted budgets? What I am looking for at the end of today really is your guidance on what might be absolutely off the table as I build a proposed budget. We have created a couple of scenarios for you to just be aware of. We know what our gap is from projected revenues to submitted expenditures, and we just wanted to paint that picture. I've created a list of principles upon which I plan to build the budget. There's one item that I left off of that list, which is because I think it's just always assumed, but I should have made it a bulleted point, and that is compliance with our financial policies. We will always do that as we balance the budget and bring a proposed document to you. So if there aren't any other questions on the accomplishments and challenges, I will hand it over to Donna, our Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just to get things started, this is really turned it on. This is the one thing I didn't test. Yeah. All right, Starlet, I need you. Sorry. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think the rubber band is indication there may be an issue. Holding it together.
Oh,
I'm
there's
sorry,
reductions.
Yeah, that probably was a budget reduction. It's not going to work, so unless manifest is green. Okay. So with the changing environment that we talked about in November, that the way we're receiving our revenues are just different. What I've done for 2019, it's very cautious and very conservative, because right now I have no indication that we're going to be better off in 19. My 18 revenues right now are coming in pretty much in line with budget. We got back a little bit better to November, but we'll go through each of these and I'll tell you what I know. But I'm just not seeing the oomph in our growth that I want to see. So, of course, we've talked about our decreased growth in sales tax, the moderate growth in meals tax, flat real estate assessments, Liberty University capping their residential program so we're not getting those influx of new students every year to increase, the popularity of Airbnbs, and increased online shopping. So we really are in a different environment than what we have been in the past. As I mentioned, our real estate, you'll notice that we projected a 0.3% in 2018 and a 0.2% in 19. So, and really that is just, for 19, that's just new growth. So any new construction, anything we're adding with proration and projects, that's our 2%. So really, 18 and 19 are still reflecting our continued slow growth in our real estate tax base. We've received 2 of our 4 installments, and 45% of our 18 adopted budget has been collected. And that's another piece of this. The collection staff has happened to work even harder to collect our revenues. So people are paying slower, and I think that's just part of what's going on in our economy.
What's the reassessment year?
Next year.
Next year.
So 18
Even
was
years.
a reassessment.
18 was a reassessment year. But I do think a piece of that is we were in between assessors, so that was a challenge for that group, and they really, they rose to meet the challenge and get that done. But I'm hoping maybe next year is going to look a little more encouraging.
And I thought the Commissioner of Revenue stated, and what keeps him up at night was something to do with that.
Oh,
yeah. So I've got some optimism about the economy. I think that we're in a good position. I think we're going to see some growth. I just don't think we captured it in that. And to me, the mechanics say it has to grow. Hopefully, it'll come in 20.
Hopefully. And part of this is also just a new environment. I think what the legislative agenda that we sent to our General Assembly really stated that a lot of the tax code that was written, years ago, society has changed. And just even the difference between how we used to go to Blockbuster and rent a movie, and now we have Netflix and Hulu, but that got shot down in the House. It was going to add 55 cents to your Netflix bill a month. And there were no new taxes, and that was overtaxing our millennials. So I have a hard time with that. Of course, I'm on the other side of that. But, that didn't make it out of the House. Even the lady that brought it forward voted against it. So it never stood a chance. So we'll see.
But this is a real estate tax that you're on right now.
Yeah, this is real estate tax. But again, just part of the different environment that we're in.
And I guess when we look at the ones individually, though, we should look at those individually, the taxes, and what we can do about that. So I think that is something, when you have probably a little bit of growth in the counties, I've seen a lot of building going on in Bedford County and a lot of building in Campbell County. With that, what are we doing and what can we do as policy to try to allow that to grow?
And growth, it's interesting, Jeff, it seems like it kind of mirrors a lot of what I see in the city, which is, we see a lot of the downtown walks and people buying that in the counties. You see the apartments going up or the condos going up. row by row, and, you know, it might reflect, again, this younger generation who probably not ready to own homes, and I don't know when they'll be ready, but they're kind of, that's like their first major step, and I don't know how long, because we don't have any record of that. If they're going to have a house and all these possessions, what I'm reading about them, no. Not necessarily, they want the experiential thing of traveling and doing all these other things. So who knows how long, you know, house buying and acquiring will be bought by the younger generation who are now settling in our communities.
Somebody owns their houses.
And see, that's the point. Someone does, or someone owns those apartment complexes, or so.
So as long as there are people looking to live in this area, this should drive real estate assessments and prices up. Should.
And the thing that holds assessments from going up is the extra, the negative cash flow on the piece of property. So if one area's got a huge bill on top of it versus another area, that suppresses the growth in the property.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. With more rental units, you've got to assess those or appraise those on an income basis as opposed to, I guess, a value basis. So if you've got something that's breaking even or barely breaking even, it's going to suppress the appraised value of that property, which may affect the assessed value.
And supply and demand, obviously. If you have a limited number in an area and you have lots of townhomes or lots of condos or lots of apartments, that may suppress that growth. If you have a lot higher tax rate on there, that suppresses the growth. There's a lot of different policies that we can do, whether it be zoning, whether it be taxes, to help increase that. Look at historically what we've done, how it used to grow, and now it hasn't. So I think that's something that we need to look at collectively as a policy to say, how can we help this move forward?
One of the most important things I got out of the economic development section we had was that our biggest tool for economic development is in zoning policy. I thought that was very good.
I think it's encouraging that we have almost 1,000 lots downtown that are rented and that younger people are wanting that type of environment. So I think that's encouraging too.
And that also, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that I have to do frequently is people in the city feel really good about how well the city is doing from their lens, and downtown is booming. And maybe too far of a stretch, but in comparison to when I first came here, it certainly feels like it is booming. But I've had to educate people about the real estate rehabilitation relief, that we're not getting that additional real estate tax until those properties come out of that program. And that's great because we've incentivized them on the front end, but we're not getting that real estate revenue on the front end.
So trying to think creatively when we're talking about this to encourage home ownership, and I don't know if you follow the transfer for real estate like I do every Monday. I turn to that almost first to see what Thetford's doing, Campbell's doing, our counties, and Lynchburg's doing, and the homes that seem to be purchased and bought are those that fall within $150,000 to $200,000 range. That's the bulk of homes, and there are some outliers, and some of them, of course, are higher, and some are property transfers. But even trying to incentivize that layer, thinking creatively, to get maybe the younger generation to buy homes in that strata, we're going to lose revenue if we say, okay, we'll cut taxes on those particular real properties. I don't know. I don't even know if we have a schedule of different real property tax rates just to encourage and incentivize some to purchase homes. And we've done that in our inner core. I was thinking homes that probably are near Lynchburg College, and maybe some of those belts that we hear are those poverty belts, maybe down Memorial into Jeff's Ward. Seems to be a lot of smaller homes that fall in that range. I don't know. if you have certain homes that fall out of the inner core, where we've incentivized, we would think about that in the future to encourage home ownership with a renewable generation.
Now, I have to check with Walter, because I'm
Yeah, I
not
don't
sure,
think you could do
as
that.
state code, that you can do that.
I'm sure you can.
I don't want to get into the weeds, but when we look at real estate revenues, real estate does include a tremendously varied category of properties.
Yes.
And we have, that's discounting all of the nonprofits and colleges. Well, most of this conversation is about residential, but we've had a lot, as alluded to, commercial development and some industrial development. I've never seen, but I'm sure there is, a breakdown as to what percentage of our revenues come from residential, commercial, industrial, and the others. That would be helpful because
Okay.
there's a lot going on in terms
Right.
of what's being built, and we're showing things are flat. So there must be some categories that are not moving much, like residential, and others are, and it could be an offset. And that could guide our policy, not only zoning, but others.
Okay, and we can certainly get that from you.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
Because I agree with Randy. I think that'd be interesting to see, but I think it'd be more telling not to have a point in time, like what is it this year, but how's so that same chart over the past 10 years, what is the growth, or what has the rate of change been in industrial, in residential, and in
Okay.
commercial?
Okay. We'll certainly get that. Yeah, because Jeff has even talked about how he feels like there is especially room in the commercial properties to really look at those valuations. So, now that's a great point.
I guess, but our true value of property is pretty consistent, though, once things are sold, as Mayor Foster said. Once things are sold, then they true it up to say, what did it actually sell for versus what it was assessed for. So we don't want to bloat assessments, but we don't want to, and I think they're like 97, 98% of what it sells for versus what it's assessed for. So I think that's pretty,
Well, I think Jeff
it's pretty high.
I think the last time I heard Jeff make the presentation, right after he got here, they were in the high 80s, maybe? Do you remember that? The assessments he felt like were more in the high 80s.
He used to be
There's
really,
that brief
So I'm not
presentation,
sure.
but we've
Yeah.
got to do the true value of property every year
Right.
when we true up with,
Absolutely.
you know, all the different funding formulas.
it used to be,
Composite index and all that, so.
it used to be 10% below, the assessments are 10% below market,
It
almost.
should be 80%, you know, of the market, which would be normal,
Yeah.
but I think we got up pretty close
We
there.
got really close.
Yeah. Some of them were even assessed higher than, many of them that I saw were assessed a whole lot higher than they actually sold for.
Hopefully we're out of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Charles has an anecdotal example to exactly, I think, what you were saying.
Yes, sir. I was talking to Mr. Bandy earlier this week, or late last week, and one of his examples he noticed was a restaurant that had sold recently to an out-of-town purchaser. It was assessed at about $650,000, and the transaction price was $1.2 million.
Oh, that's the other direction.
That's real money.
So there's some cases like that we're seeing in certain sectors of commercial, to your all's point, that I think we can show that there's some gaps, and we need to take a look at that during the next valuation.
So optimism, to Councilmember Perro's point, for next year.
And the reason for why Randy's question is, I think, is important is I've seen the opposite. I've seen a house right in my neighborhood that was assessed for like 100 and some thousand, and it sold for 25. So, so that would be a good, yeah.
That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, yeah, well, I mean, I think there's some stuff in it.
The other point that I want council to be aware of is that typically residential in communities costs us money in services, whereas commercial and industrial make us money.
And they help with our poverty initiative by having jobs. They do a lot of things, and that's back to what Turner said about the zoning issues. And so, you know, when we look at, let's not just say, let's get more apartments and more condos and townhomes, if that's not appreciating. But if we're getting companies and jobs, and which will help on every facet.
I mean, it's supply and demand. How can we incentivize demand for housing and for jobs and everything else? How do we incentivize, and how can we use our zoning code to incentivize it? Because you get the increased demand on a restricted supply, I mean, the prices go up. I mean, taxes go up.
Oh, personal property, thank you. Personal property, this generally tracks pretty closely with the economy as well. You'll see in actual 17, we grew about 1.5%. This is one I work closely with Commissioner Revenue on as well. And he looks very closely at the actively registered vehicles in the city. So that means the ones that have plates and that are registered at the DMV. And he's seeing just the number of vehicles grow about 1% a year. And of course, this is going to be based on the value of that 1%. But as long as gas prices are staying low, he's saying that we're seeing still about 1% growth in the number of vehicles year over year. And so we think that's going to attribute to about 1.5%. So this one's, you can see it's pretty flattened out, but at least it's consistent. So, and this one, this is one of the taxes that we use the DMV stop program for collections, and that's been very effective. So that's really helped us keep our collections up and make this one positive.
Can I explain what the DMV stop?
The DMV stop program is if you go to the DMV to renew your plates, your driver's license, any type of work that you would have to do at the DMV, if you owe local taxes, if you owe your personal property tax or a parking ticket, then you cannot register or do the work you want to do. They send you back to City Hall to take care of your liens first. So that program is very effective.
So the state is helping the city collect their taxes. So it's not a sanctuary car tax policy.
No, it's not. And having the DMV select in City Hall is very helpful too. That way citizens that do have a DMV stop are not running back and forth to Oddfellows Road, that they can take care of all their business in City Hall. So, and I appreciate the treasurer taking over those responsibilities from finance. Next one's just one of our favorites, local sales and use tax. And the Commissioner of Revenue has really delved into this to see what is sales and what is use. And he has come up with the fact that you absolutely cannot determine what your use tax is going to be, that it's just all over the place. So it's really hard to project this revenue because of the use tax piece. Finally, in November.
Would you define the use tax?
The use tax is anything that's used in like manufacturing to actually build a product as opposed to the sale of a product.
So how is that assessed?
It's assessed, it's the same way as sales tax. It's self-reported to the state.
So it's based on orders?
So, all right, so let's talk about what Delta
Yes.
Star, so who builds massive transformers. How would they?
So instead of paying sales tax when they pay when they sell something, they pay it. It's different. It goes into a different category as a use tax. And I don't understand these as well as Mitch does. So
Okay.
We'll get that
So
here.
you're looking at the
Explain.
difference basically between a retail type tax versus a wholesale type tax.
or a
based on
manufacturing
order.
type tax. Yes,
And it's on the product, not on the equipment that manufactures the product.
that's correct. Yeah, because part of personal property tax is your machinery and tools tax, which is different, which is the tax on the actual machines making the product.
Okay. So is the use tax pretty small?
It depends. If it's
As a percentage?
Ariva can, yeah, as a percentage, yes. But it's hard because like Ariva can have a large sale in there that really skews our numbers. So when you're looking at it year over year, it just depends on if there's one-time large volume of use tax in the middle of your sales tax. So it makes it just, he said it's just not consistent at all.
What order of magnitude are we talking about? A couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million? Or less?
It's like 2% of that number or 30%?
I would have to ask Mitch.
We'll get it from Mitch.
Okay.
We'll get more
Imagine
information.
something.
I mean, if it's less than $200,000, then
I think it's more than
I
that.
think it's more than that, yeah.
Imagine it's a small percentage of the whole, though. You know, it's probably not like Randy asked the other time about the breakdown between commercial, industrial, and residential. I got a feeling it's got to be like 90-some% at least, or 98, whatever, big percentage in sales, very little in use. So,
I'll give that percentage. November was a good month in sales tax, which basically finally got us to flat with our budget, adopted budget for 18. However, Mitch has already started calling me because he can look at the, he has a system that looks at the state system, that he can see that tax being collected, and he let me know that the early December numbers are not good. So I hate to throw a number out there because it's not all recorded until February 5th. So early next week, I'll have the real number for December, but it's coming in slow.
is there any correlation with consumer confidence, sales tax and consumer confidence?
I would think.
Right. Except you're missing out on the online sales.
Right.
you may be so confident that you just buy everything online without having to get out of your pajamas. Yeah.
Well, and
Pretty much, yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting to see with the new tax laws, everybody got a little bit of money into their paychecks. So it's going to be interesting if we see any better numbers starting in maybe February to see if that helps some consumer confidence.
I'll also be interested to see how your collections go.
Yes.
The payments start that way.
Okay.
And usually, when people get their tax refund, they do maybe, I think, to that point, and to maybe, I guess, some other factors. I don't know.
Yeah, so.
I guess people have been hibernating, the weather, all sorts of things probably impact that somewhat. Not with online, though, but
Right, and I think most people are probably waiting to file their taxes, maybe to make a large purchase or something, because they're not sure how they're going to play out this year. I mean, I typically know what mine are, but I got no clue. It's like I just have to sit down and do it because I'm not sure.
Well, the good news is there should be an increase in disposable income.
Right.
So, and that should stimulate.
Which I'm hoping.
That should.
Which I'm hoping
I
will.
hope so too.
But, hope's not a strategy, to quote Brad Ferguson. So that's why we really are not projecting growth for 19. Just because I don't have any indication yet that that's going to happen. So hopefully by the time we get to March and April in our budget balancing, that we'll be able to look at this number again. I'll have more information. So, this isn't a final. We continue to look at these while we were balancing the budget. And even after we turn it over to council, we continue to look at these numbers because it's early in the year.
So you're projecting a slight decrease,
Yeah, because,
or no?
yes.
Even with our actual in 2017.
It's like, yeah.
Because I just wasn't sure when I was putting these numbers together. I mean, I just got the final for November. So I was looking at that thinking, okay, I'm not sure we were going to get to our 18 number. So that's why I've been very, very conservative. So, but again, we look at these all the time. So let's bring
the
some
difference. Can we differentiate the local sales tax of locally owned businesses, small businesses versus our big box or our chain stores or?
Mitch has that information. It's not public. So, but he could do some type of percentage.
Okay.
He might be able to give us categories, but we would have to check with him. Like big boxes compared to independent small business.
Right, and I'm just thinking, with the increase of online sales, I want to know where are people shopping in our our city, and who are they spending money with? Is it, folks in certain demographics, or, doing more shopping in certain concentrated areas in our city, or only shopping local business? I'm interested in that, because we've got to figure that out for the online sales piece. I mean, I know some people who never go into a store. I know some people that only shop out of town. And so if that's making a difference to even the local business owners, then, what's our responsibility in promoting local shopping or local ownership, that sort of thing.
One of the things that I have heard from some of our smaller business retailers is that people are coming into their business and using the storefront as a showroom, a sales showroom, and leaving and going and buying online. And Donna has a great story that she may have shared.
And that's not a Lynchburg phenomenon.
Yeah,
That's
they do
happening
that
elsewhere.
in every big boxes too, so you can see how it works.
Well, my oldest son and his wife
Sit there right there.
at Christmas time went into Kohl's, identified items that they wanted to purchase. They went out in their car, got on their phone, realized, and looked at them online, by same items online, realized there was a better percentage off online. They sat in their car, ordered online, had them shipped to the store, and when they got the email notification they were there, they went back in the store and picked up the items.
Savvy shoppers.
Kohl's still got
Kohl's
the
is in
sale.
Campbell County.
Kohl's got the
Kohl's
sale,
got the
but it was
sale.
online. But yeah, so we should get that
but
sales tax.
Was there sales tax collected on that?
Yes. Yeah, they have to, because we have a.
Because there's Kohl's.
They're not getting the 1%. They're
No.
getting the proportion of
Yeah,
the
we're
state.
getting the online proportion as opposed to the full 1%. So it's,
Well, at least we got something.
I do preach online now,
They got
trust me.
something.
I'm local, I tell my kids that all the time, but I had a notification, my sister's on furlough, she's a missionary in Uganda, and I get notifications when boxes are dropped off at the house, and I'm like, wait a minute, who ordered from Amazon? Is it me? It's like, stop it. So. Motor vehicle license typically trends very closely with our personal property tax, but unlike personal property tax, state code authorizes cities to levy a motor vehicle license tax on all motor vehicles, trailers, semi-trailers, without exemption. So if you have a junk vehicle in your yard, you still have to pay a motor vehicle license fee. So,
It's like the license plate you're talking about.
yes.
No.
Is
No,
it used to be the decal. on the
No, it's,
windshield that's
yeah.
no longer
But if
required.
it has
Gotcha.
even if it doesn't have a plate on it, you still should
Yeah,
be
gotcha.
paying a motor vehicle license fee, which, yes, used to be the decal.
The decal fee.
They are very
So how
thankful
do
to
you
get rid of
even
stickers.
know if that someone's in violation if they'll junk things in the yard? There's no decal, there's no license on it.
Complaint basis.
Yeah.
That would be,
And sometimes, I know Mitch has used GIS to see cars that are parked in, a yard.
I know they have a drone
he's quite, no, he could use a drone now. Just working for us.
Yes. Business license tax. We'll get our new assessments in March. And I do believe that our 2018 number is probably low. That's my hope. Actual 2017, that $8.9 million does have about $300,000 that was a catch-up payment from a local company. So even when you take that off, we're still at about 8.6. So if those assessments hold from 17, I do think 18 is going to be better. Not knowing that quite yet, my projected 19 is only at 0.8%, but once we get those March assessments for 18, I'm hoping they're going to be up, and then I'll be able to bump up that 19 number.
So when does that, unlike our real estate tax, when do these dollars actually come in?
May. They're due May 1st. Business licenses due May 1st.
So
So-
we should have had the May 1st for the 2018 already then, of
No.
last May?
Fiscal year. So it's only February of 18. So we'll get for the 18
So
numbers
the-
coming in, the collections will be May 1st, 2018.
So 2017 came in by
Actually.
last May.
Yes.
Okay.
So that 8.9, I'm hoping, once you take that $300,000 off for one time, I'm hoping we're going to get to at least 8.6.
And you'll know that in
So-
mid-March when the invoices
Right.
go out.
Right. So I'll know, hopefully, 2018 is going to be about $400,000 more than what's adopted, and then also be able to project an increase for 2019. But again, I'm waiting for those assessments to come in March. Lodging tax, obviously our big bump there for adopted 2018 includes the 1% rate increase, but we were also anticipating 3 new hotels to open in 18. The first one is slated to open March 1st. So my numbers, we're pretty close to what we budgeted right now, but I'm anxious to get some other hotels open. So we had anticipated a half a year of the Virginian and more than half of a year at the Residence Inn at the mall. So those didn't get opened like we anticipated. So, but we're just slightly under budget right now. So hopefully those numbers are going to hold and we'll be okay. I didn't project much of an increase in 19 until I see when these hotels are going to get open. And we have another one that's going to start
Homewood Suites
Homewood Suites.
on Woods Road.
So,
Explain to me a little bit about, we charge an extra per night, is it $1?
$1 per night.
per
$1
room.
per room that goes to, it's all folded into this, or?
It's
It's
all,
in here.
it is all folded into this.
So, just a sidebar, is that something that, when did we make that $1, and has that ever been?
The dollar per room per night was added early 2000s. I want to say maybe 2001, 2002-ish.
Was it ever there, was that a brand new?
It was brand new.
Tax? I don't know why I thought it was for.
That was originally kind of for tourism, I think.
Right.
Yes,
Yes,
I thought it
yes.
was for, thank you. I thought it was, but we don't do that anymore?
Well,
for
it goes
tourism?
into our general fund
More than
revenue
that,
pot, but I think we spend more than more than what the dollar per room per night generates in tourism. I think we would have to check that data point.
Can you just check, how much does that money, just that $1 per room, per night, bring annually? And has that steadily gone up?
It would go, I'm sure it's gone up because of
The
the
number
of rooms
number
is
of
gone
rooms.
I mean, that's, and I don't like to tax like anyone, but that is a fee, sort of, that you can charge others coming into the area and not necessarily just the people living in the area.
Did we look at that last year?
I
We
don't know
raised
if
the
we looked
lodging
at that
tax
$1.
from 6.5 to 7.5, right?
That's
Right.
correct.
That's correct. But that
So that was a
dollar,
percent.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, 5.5 to
5.5
6.5.
So that was a percent of the whole cost of the room.
right.
So if the room is $100, that was an extra $1, in the increase 1% in tax. If the room is $200, that was an increase of $2, basically, per night.
But this one particular fee, I'm gonna call it a fee,
It's a room tax.
tax, a
It's a
room
room
tax, didn't necessarily go up.
No,
No,
it did not
we
go
did
up.
not
Still the
change
same.
the dollar.
Still
per
the
night.
same.
And one of the added benefits of that dollar per room per night is it is a way for us to track occupancy
Yes.
that we can't do from the percentage.
And I think that would be interesting, however you could produce a chart or whatever to
Okay.
show us how much that generates, even maybe how many occupancies, then
Okay.
we can
Well, that
figure it
would-
out. We can
do
figure
that.
that out,
Yes,
Scott.
yes.
One for one.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can do
one
that.
for one.
We had very detailed information on this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we were dealing with the issue of tourism and who's going to get what
Right.
slice of the
Right.
pie. It was dissected very minutely.
Oh, yeah, we absolutely can get that information.
Thank you, Donna.
I guess the difference, I'll dig up this flat dollar versus the revenue, the tax number, is if you have more rooms, so if there's more supply, without a corresponding increase in demand, you may have prices per room come down. So actually just adding more hotels doesn't increase the demand, it increases the supply, it doesn't increase the demand. If there's not a corresponding demand, the prices of rooms are going to decline. If you had a flat dollar, it doesn't matter if the price of the room declines, you have that flat dollar.
So
I'm
that would
just
be-
hoping, though, that those folks who are putting those hotels in, they've done their market study of our area, and they pretty much are not building a hotel in a place that's a bad
Not saying it's a
a
bad
bad investment. I think maybe they're seeing things that maybe we're not seeing. You know, I see the potential. We all see it here.
I can.
Just keep in mind, though, that a lot of times people, we can all be looking at something, and we all go, I got a great idea. And you think the same thing, and Turner thinks the same thing, because we see a need for another hotel. And now, all of us, unbeknownst to each other, we all now build a hotel, and we go, I was going to get that. And so do you, and so does Turner. And so everybody's going after the same thing because they saw a need, and everybody jumps on it, and now it's like,
Jumping, but
Well, I
the
think-
fact is they keep jumping, and I'm thinking, what? I mean, I
so
would agree
anyway,
with that.
just the
Well, I think the real threat is this. I mean, what's the number one choice? What is the number one factor, or number one or number two factor that you choose when you pick a hotel? Whenever you're going anywhere to visit, it's location. Maybe price, but probably location is driving it. And
yeah.
of the business associates that I've had come into town, they all choose to stay as close to the airport as they can possibly stay. So what does that mean? There's 3 hotels in Campbell County. So with the advent of more hotels, I think that's a threat to us. We're losing, if Campbell County allows more hotels to be built, that's going to detract from us because that's also adjacent to Liberty, which is the driver.
It is.
And that road that goes all the way back, you don't have to go to Ward's Road anymore to get to
Right.
that main road.
But you know, people flying in, that kind of, I mean, that's a good point. However, I think those parents coming in for those weekends and those weekends that Liberty has, they might want to be near Liberty, and guess where those hotels are, you know?
Well, they're near Campbell County.
Well, they are.
That one is
But
actually closer.
if we were stopped building hotels around that area in Lynchburg, I might say, you're right, they're a huge threat. But there's still hotels going up in that area. So I think there definitely is a demand there. Now, with Liberty capping their students, maybe these hotels didn't know that. You know,
I think that's an interesting point. I have a college student living with me who will graduate in May, and I asked him, I said, are your parents coming? They live in Oregon. And he said, well, they think they're coming. And he said that I found out that you can now book your room for graduation 4 years in advance.
Oh,
yes.
You know, when I was in
Yes.
college, you know, you kind of had to jump on it at March.
Years.
You know, well, I mean, it wasn't even a year in advance when I was in college. I mean, you had to kind of know, and you had to be quick. You know, there weren't that many, well, there weren't that many graduates, but there weren't that many hotels either. And I asked him, I said, is the hotel at the mall, have they already started accepting reservations? He said, oh, it booked up before it was built. And I said, oh, I had no idea. So I think it's Panthers thing.
But that, those are, out of 365 days a year, you're looking at 4 days.
Yeah, right.
we
But
can't
I mean, but I just
overplay
think
a hand.
that's interesting that,
But, Jeff, Liberty is doing so much with the different weekends. Then we have the Commonwealth Games. Then we're going to have, because of what they're building, it isn't almost now just parent weekend.
Right.
It's a sports weekend, it's a special men's weekend, we have the ladies' weekend coming, you know, it's like power to them.
Well,
Have those weekends.
I think being in the FBS for the football bowl series, I think that's going to be interesting too, to see if it draws more people to watch the football games, because there'll be bigger names coming in town to play Liberty, and I think that's going to draw more alumni back to see football games as well.
And going back to that economic development session, somebody said, I think it was you, that said you want to see Lynchburg as a destination city.
Yes.
In some extent, it is.
Yes.
Because people come here for the events that Liberty puts on. If you look at Winterfest, if you look at all those activities that draw.
And I think that is wonderful. But I think also, and well, some may disagree with me, what we're doing downtown with the arts and culture will make it a destination place. I actually tried to book something for an organization that I'm on board of something downtown for a major gala, as I'll take it. That place hasn't opened yet. So it's like, all right, it's happening. And, you know, I remember, we were on, do you remember who were on with Scott Garrett? Remember he used to say that years ago? Oh, how I wish Lynchburg could become this big tourist place or destination place. I hope he's seeing that.
He talks about tourism, like the historical American history tourism or something.
Yeah,
Or whatever
I remember him saying that, and we were getting it, but we didn't know it. Here's the sin, maybe.
Well, we also talked about clusters that meeting. So if you acknowledge that Liberty is in fact a driver for Lynchburg being a destination, what kind of cluster industries can build off of that and create that destination? And somebody caught me, I mean, it's like, it just caught me right between the eyes the other day. He said, guys, I can't remember where I was. I said I was from Lynchburg. He said, oh, I hear that's becoming quite a foodie destination.
Oh, absolutely.
Whoa!
Yes, absolutely.
Hot dog.
Right?
I love to hear that.
Not exactly.
Or-
Not exactly the foodie.
Right.
I'm thinking they're coming for the hot
And I think that too, so, you know,
That's great.
it's wonderful.
That's true.
I will offer some information from the Office of Economic Development, and you've all talked about it, is we are moving towards that hotel room saturation point, and I can assure you that banks are not financing unless the economic analysis that the person seeking the loan provides for a return on investment.
Good.
And we are starting to see a saturation point.
All right. Well,
Saturation point meaning is
The market saturated.
The market is saturated for hotels.
Yeah, that makes sense.
which is a bad thing for new ones, is what you're saying. Yes. So, no point. No, I didn't know if anybody else did. Everybody's going, oh, it's great, it's saturated. Wait a minute, that's not the greatest.
Saturated is probably not ever a good word. Unless you're saturated.
I got a sponge.
Yes.
So question, if we're at a potential saturation point, or we're seeing that in the near future, and wherever hotels are going to be built at, is there room to raise that dollar fee?
That's something that can be considered.
That's on you.
Yeah.
That's where I think we need to see what that's bringing in.
Right.
If it's going into general fund, and you know, point being, we're not taxing necessarily our own people. We're taxing those who decide to come here, have a choice to stay here, or maybe in a county that doesn't have that tax. So, I mean, it is a gamble whenever you do something like that. But, you know, that might be something to look at, and that's why I would like to see that.
Okay.
And just think if it's worth it to add another thing on there.
Yeah,
You know,
and I mean,
it may
that's
be-
why I think we want to see the history of
The
it.
dollar amount.
Yeah. I mean, weigh it out like we do everything during these times.
And what I'll try to do, and I'll of course talk to Bonnie about it, but I can probably present that information when she presents the budget message.
Because you have it in there, says
Tuesday in
like
March.
200,000 rooms, and so an extra dollar obviously would be 200,000. You know, so. whatever that number is times 1. I'm pretty good at mathematics.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we need a calculator for that one.
Got a calculator that'll do it.
Back to Turner's point of the cluster pieces that might develop, we have seen so many marriage venues develop in our area because our young people stay here and get married and have this, instead of going somewhere else, they're using our venues.
Right, our
And-
college students.
Yes, a lot of the college students are, and so I think that looks like something to me over the years have popped up, and it looks like they're still popping up.
And Lynchburg Wedding Week kicks off today, according to our
Exactly.
Nice.
event to highlight citywide offerings.
Well, and that is another reason people are staying in our hotels, is they're coming to all these weddings.
Well, don't forget, we have other colleges and universities in Lynchburg.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's,
That
and
is
see,
driving
that's the
it.
point. I know, I stay here
Yeah, it is amazing.
It is.
On Ward's Road the other day, on the new billboard, Liberty had a wedding thing.
Right.
And so I was like, what is that? I thought they were maybe in business with like Wilton Pratt, with some of their, because they got several wedding venues. But it was something totally different. It was like Cape Chapel on the old Thomas Road. Those kind of places for weddings as well. And, you know, I mean, it's amazing the destination wedding kind
We could
of
be a wedding
concept was.
destination.
Well, and Liberty students get married early.
Yes.
Right? Careful.
Yeah, case in point.
Funny.
Moving on. Moving on. Meals tax. We noted that meals tax, the 2.1% was in 2017 was really, that's the least growth we've seen year over year since 2013. 2018, at this point, we are consistent with budget. We're squeaking in there, but we are hanging in there. And so we did project a 1% growth for 2019. Again, this is one that we watch very, very closely, and we'll be updating as we get additional months' information. But this, I think, is impacted by Liberty residential program being capped. Because, you know, when you throw a couple of thousand more students every year into the mix, the tax that we get from not the meal plans, but the other restaurants on campus, and it continues to grow. But I think that's gonna make a difference.
I was just going to say that I had heard from some downtown restaurateurs that the Main Street Bridge construction has had an impact on downtown restaurants.
Interesting.
Not huge, because if you tried to go to a restaurant on Friday or Saturday night, it's sort of hard to get in, but it's had an impact.
And I was buying at the chocolate place in Midway, up the street. And they told me the same thing. I said, how's your business? Well, they said, the bridge is impacted. Because Liberty students would come there a lot, and it's too much detouring. If they feel that it's kind of confusing. So I don't know if there's any way we could even look at that. It's just, I mean, it looks like they picked the best route to get downtown, but I don't know. But it's confusing coming from that end of town to a section of our town probably that's never been motored through or something. So that, they feel, has impacted even the chocolate place.
I dropped off my lawnmower at Myers and Rhodes yesterday, Tuesday. And so I thought, well, I know how to get there, but how to get home is a different story. So got off, but it was actually fairly easy, but it was a whole different area. I've been about everywhere. I don't think I've ever been up that road straight in front, and I kind of wound around, and then I came right by the fire department, the fire station, and but it was, that signage was kind of pretty slick, but good signage getting there. You can always figure out how to get out, but getting there is probably the more difficult. You know, or just saying, hey, I'm not going to go that way. And, but it seemed pretty easy to.
Americans love convenience.
Well,
Americans.
and I imagine a lot of, if it's students, I imagine a lot of them use GPS to get around. And, you know, they're not necessarily reading the signs. Interesting.
Kemper did well. Big fan of Kemper did well. Amusement tax, actual 2017, you see the big spike there. We did have great movies and lots of events that bumped up our amusement tax. However, they're telling us in early 2018 fiscal year, over the summer, the movies were terrible and that no one went to the movies over the summer. So, and that was something that was reported nationwide. So, right now, we are consistent with budget. I'm hoping, I still don't have my December numbers yet, so I don't know if Star Wars helped me. So hoping that that number is going to grow for 2018, and then hopefully we'll be able to bump it up a little more for 2019 as we get additional information in. But it really trends on how good the movies are and who wants to go see them.
Is this one of, I mean, this is such a small dollar number. Is this been one of our normal, it's not one of our big five?
No, but it's
And this is mostly movies. Is it like,
Well,
like
and
concerts and
it is anything that
displays
charges a cover charge. So if there's a ticket sale or a cover
and, like
charge,
a bar that has a
yes,
cover charge to get in?
yes. And honestly, Mitch Knuckles is all over that as well as my collectors. They look up restaurants and venues on Facebook all over town looking for when there's going to be an event. And our offices talk to make sure that we are assessing amusement tax.
So what would, I mean, so like, for example, you go to a bar and they have a $5 cover charge to get in, which normally goes to the band.
No, they have to pay amusement tax.
So what kind of percentage is that on that?
Very
It's
small.
I mean, I know it's got to be small, but
5.5%.
I mean, so, you know, we got rid of the business license tax because it was such a small thing to try to record. So 1% of $5.
No, they still have to pay. No, it's not, oh, you asked me, I'm not going to tell you. I think it's 5.5% is our amusement tax.
Look it up.
Are you, if you hadn't, if I hadn't.
It can be
I'm
big
pretty sure
dollars,
it's
though.
5.5%.
So,
Yeah.
so you're talking about clusters.
Oh, it's
again.
7%. Okay, thank you.
All right, so it's basically sales tax. Is this in addition to sales tax, or
I'm sorry.
is this in addition to sales tax?
Yes,
Okay,
they
so
still
it's
have to
over.
pay sales tax.
So it's almost like a meals tax, the total effect of the meals tax on top of the, or a hotel tax, or it's on top of sales. All right, but one of the other things we talked about, or thinking about clusters, and again, I was after that meeting the other night, I was racking my brain about how we can benefit from the resources that we currently have. And I started thinking about what are the resources that Liberty University spins off, and how can, because it's a driver, it's an economic driver in the area, and how can we capitalize on those resources? And I was struggling with it until I thought of one of the significant resources that Liberty University spins off is talent. There are some amazing, talented people that come out of that university. And how could we compound on that? And I was talking to a colleague a couple of years ago, and they had a concept that it's seeing the amount of talent that came out of Liberty University, and they were doing a lot of work in Nashville at the time. My colleague said, well, Nashville's the capital of country music. Why couldn't Lynchburg, Virginia be the capital of Christian music? If we've got that many artists and artisans coming out of Liberty University, what could we do to promote that? Again, make Lynchburg a destination place for music. And just because it's one venue of music, or one type of music, but music breeds music. It just makes it an event, a place where people go. And if Lynchburg is known for music or performances, there's going to be more types of music and performances that follow us, and that would directly play to our amusement tax. So that's me just brainstorming, but I just wanted to share that with you
See,
guys.
I think that's a great brainstorm, and I also think, again, with the kids that are coming out of Liberty and the other colleges, to make this an attractive place, having music a lot, having maybe different forms of music. Christian music could, like he said, music is music, but it brings other music. And I think what's happening at the riverfront last summer was totally phenomenal. To see the number of people that love coming out and listening to music on quilts and on chairs and whatever with the entire family, which I hope we got an amusement tax from some of that. It is charged.
All of it.
Yes.
Yes, all of it. So that just makes it a great quality of life here. A fun thing. That's what these young people want, that experience, that, moment that kind of leaves an imprint on them as a great moment. And I think we need to think, how can we continue to give those moments where more people come here and say, I want that experience. That we have the Christian music, we have the music by the riverfront, we have music in the academy, which people are lining up to put different types of music in that academy already because of the acoustics and because it's just a novelty. I don't know if it'll wear off. It might not.
Well, there's a
about the
music
business?
festival just up the road also.
Yeah,
And one of
absolutely. We
the
should have
headline
a
bands,
huge cultural festival.
one of the headline bands that was put on during that Riverfront Festival, or during the Riverfront series, they're a bunch of former Liberty students. And they were headlining.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really knew that until they said it on stage. Hey, we all went to school here.
Yeah.
What about like the business incubator? If that's not being the space kind of thing, or if we, not necessarily that particularly, but we had places that we had space that was being utilized.
Studio space.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
we've got places that are, being unoccupied, and we used to have a lot of warehouses and empty buildings and stuff, which are obviously now being converted
No, we don't
and
have
lost
any.
and stuff, so probably a little more limited as far as empty kind of things, but if there's things like that, that's,
Do you think
That's a
about-
great idea.
And-
Charles just made a note of it because he's on the business development
Good.
board. And it's not something that they had thought of, so this
I think,
conversation is very
I
great.
think we need a cultural festival, not only just the music, but the performing arts and all the things that we are seeing are developing in our community that not a weekend, I wouldn't mind a whole month of it. But I think that's something I know recently, I just brainstormed with someone last week who said, well, I put some money on that one, to bring a festival and celebration of our visual arts, our performing arts, our musical arts, and just all the many pieces that
while-
we see developing here.
While we may be lacking as a retail destination, I believe going forward, we are going to be able to literally capitalize on being that foodie and entertainment
Oh, gosh.
destination.
Lynchburg Arts Festival.
Yeah.
the plays over there are so, it's amazing.
Oh,
Music,
I mean,
it's like, and so with that, I think that has spun off other ones.
In station.
Yeah.
And there's this other one that I went to, they did the Christmas thing, Bing Crosby, White Christmas. So I got a thing that said, hey, you got any vets that can come to this? And I thought it'd probably be 3 people, and that thing was packed, and it was fabulous. The talent was unbelievable, and they had it over at the Old Thomas Road, used that stage, and it was so well put together, and just thought, wow, these plays, they got the theater department that is growing, and
Well, the music department,
Yeah. the
and all of
performance,
that.
that center that they have there.
They have the volume to bring in the costumes and
So when you
And
have
make
those
it quite
things
an
for big
experience.
things, it'd be neat to have little, like smaller things that you got a 5-piece band, or you
yeah,
got little.
and I think it's interesting to use the word cluster, but yeah, it's I used to call them offshoots, but I guess the new word's cluster. So.
Can I just break in on this conversation and say I hope we create the intentionality of diversity and
Yes.
inclusiveness in this, because we are a very diverse city, and when we tend to, your idea is wonderful. It's not new to a lot of people who have hoped that the city would do some type of investing in that, because there's cost factors, and so everyone. I mean, I see things growing at a rate that leaves a lot of neighborhoods diversity behind. And so I just want to make sure that when we're talking about, Liberty's a great venue. There are other colleges here that offer that same. There are other artists who come from other colleges, I'm sure. Don't ask me to name one because I won't be able to. But I just want to make sure that when we go down that vein that we include Legacy Museum had a historical, what do you call it? When you have a museum exhibit, let's just say exhibit, of the point that there's rich culture and history and arts and music in this city from throughout. And so I just want to make sure when I talked about at the National League of Cities, they talked about the intentionality of a city to be inclusive and diverse, that we don't ignore the history and the culture that started here in the neighborhoods here. Because when we're talking about how we're expanding and where these venues are, we still have neighborhoods that if we get back to the poverty issue and if we get back to folks need to not only be included, but there needs to be intentionality of how we plan these things to make it inclusive and diverse. So I just want to bring that out there.
Well, I'm glad you did, because, you know, the thing about the Pierce Street, when they did the festival there on Pierce Street, and celebration of all the things there on Pierce Street, in Spencer, the Renaissance piece, the Legacy, the multicultural festival that was downtown. I thought that was one of the most fun events when you had Indian, you had African American, you had, you know, different cultures. The celebration of that. And they're having that festival again this year because I went to get some Thai food and the guy said, well, we're coming to the festival again. Absolutely. So I think that some of the things that I think, Joanne, I don't know who that festival you were from, that is a celebration of all the people who live here, and that we should be intentional. And
But I don't think any comments were about excluding anybody.
No.
What it was is Turner was just bringing up the idea that said there's a lot of people that come here. Okay, so the people that come here, some of them are extremely talented, wherever they come from. And the concept of having a space to maybe keep those people that have great talent to stay a little bit longer, to perform and have some things that you can kind of take roots. That's the thing. It's not promoting, one museum. It's not promoting something. It's saying here's a place that talent can come and hopefully get together and kind of foster and grow. So.
And I think the young talent, they cannot afford to stay in hotels. And I know many of our community members have stepped up to keep in-station performers, opera on the chain performers, different performers who come into our community, and they have that family kind of atmosphere thing going on. So I think that's a plus for our community. And I don't even know if folks know that these young artists come in, that's something we should encourage too. When you say young artists, they're up to 40 years old. And but that's a diverse group that's come in and stayed in the homes of our different citizens here in Lynchburg. And I think that's something that's a plus for our community, that we're an open community that's welcoming. And
So if they're staying at somebody's house, is there a way we can tax them $1 a day?
We can't tax them that.
That's $1 a day. They're here, heads in beds.
But there are some families that do it year after year that welcome these people.
Well, I was just looking at a concentrated pool of talent that we know of. And yeah, it's not saying that's exclusively the only pool of talent. It's exactly right. There's a lot of talent in this city. But success breeds success. And if people get accustomed to going down to the academy and seeing fantastic shows by excellent performers, some are local, some are not, and then we've developed into the academy, wherever, anywhere. Some restaurant down on Tower Street, and go see a band that's just phenomenal. But that sort of culture, that sort of culture of enjoying music, enjoying the culture of it and the experience crosses all demographics.
This is, this is really, really good discussion. We're really talking about.
We are. You're right.
Environment, we're talking about it generating more amusement tax, bottom line, right?
Yes.
But what I would like to see is our economy get to the point where we can stimulate it enough so that we can get some retail businesses coming here, like department stores. So we don't have to have be buying online because we don't have a source here.
Or going to Richmond to buy.
Excuse me, we weren't going to talk about that. And I agree with you. In every meeting, I think I try to bring that up because shopping is therapy, and I love it. But we're lacking that here. So if there's a way to make it use our space to be, more of a creative environment for shopping, whether it's local business, whether it's, because the brick and mortar is expensive for people. And so, I know we don't have many spaces, but if we do or forgotten about spaces, that folks could, we could create that synergy of businesses in one location or in one part of town or something that will generate the revenue we're talking about. And I just wanted, we do have a lot of talent here. And other people have said, why don't we have recording studios? Why don't we have this here? And people have tried to make them and makeshift environments and that sort of thing. And so, I just wanted to bring that fact up, that there's a lot of arts and culture.
My little brother has a recording studio. If you
All
need to
right.
know.
Hey.
Speaking
I
of
said
makeshift,
we danced before. I think we could make a duo song.
Yeah, when you're talking about the retail, the one, and back to our zoning ordinance and whatnot, I remember, it's been several years ago now, but there was the concept of having a big box ordinance that stopped big boxes from coming in. I don't even know where that is or what happened with it or whatever, but I know we have something that's in there that limited. It was almost like saying, hey, Walmart wanted to come on Old Forest Road. If you have a big box ordinance, it'll stop them from coming, kind of thing, because some people like local business as opposed to big boxes, and I understand the difference and whatnot. But when you have more hurdles with our zoning and ordinances as far as allowing people to come and build, that's not a hurdle you kind of want. If you have those hurdles up, keep in mind that offsets and can negatively impact the ability for shopping. So on different ones, because people don't just open up I'm looking at buying a little stove thing for my old coal-burning fireplace. You can't make a living off of selling those things, so there's a few of them across the country that they'll sell that kind of isolated thing, because it is expensive to build. And if there's more hurdles to build, whether it be a big box or small box or whatever, we should probably not have that. So I don't know where it is. I know we adopted something.
I recall it as an access management issue with the big boxes, but not necessarily limiting big boxes.
Yeah, I mean, it was put that, and then I think we kind of pulled off some of the teeth of it and stuff, but hopefully that's not something that still is impacting from businesses that want to, put a nice big, like a pottery barn or whatever, a big, nice store.
Okay, use a good fire.
Use
a that'd be wonderful.
I'd like to bring it back to this tax and other taxes and focus on what we were here for today. Is the amusement tax assessed against athletic events? I'm sure it's the Hillcats pay it, but does it apply to college events, football games?
No, if it's college related, no.
Okay, so this is statutory
Because it's
exemption.
education umbrella.
But it would apply to events at city stadium?
Yes.
How about,
But I think the Hillcats actually have an exemption
I
in
believe
the
the
contract.
Hillcats and bowling alley have an exemption.
okay, so
Good lobbying efforts. How do we do that?
the events in our city that draw the large crowd are exempt.
But why is
The
that?
figures are so small, relatively speaking.
I had a question just regarding cover charges on a campus or location that is tax exempt. If they have to charge a cover charge and the location is tax exempt, is that going to this event or not?
Now, the theater at Liberty University pays amusement tax.
When it's not Liberty University, when it's the Alluvian, probably.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So as long as it's not Liberty
Alluvian Theater
students
Company as
and
opposed to-
Liberty venue, then it it is not taxed based on their education. So a lot of the concerts at Liberty University are not an amusement tax because it's deemed under recruiting. So therefore,
So why would the Hill Cats be exempt though? I mean,
I
like
think
you said.
It's
that's-
historical. It's they have historically been exempt.
Well, yeah, that's fine, but
Why?
why?
Why,
I mean,
yeah.
just because we did something yesterday this way doesn't mean it's good tomorrow. So I think we need to,
Franchise.
yeah. I mean, because it's, if it's such a small thing and we're charging somebody like if the old TC Trotters, whatever the name of it is now, which is, the only thing I remember, we'd always have to pay a $5 cover charge if they got to send in a quarter to the city for the person that comes in. Somebody like a big baseball stadium where we've renovated the stadium and spent millions, and we're fixing up the road and, I mean,
I think that's a good point to look at.
fairness is
Yeah, we'll look
fairness,
at it.
so.
We'll absolutely look at it.
wait, when I went to Liberty, you couldn't go
That
to
does
TC
make the
Trotters.
same.
Because when you went to TC Trotter, or when you went to Liberty, you were the right age. You were under 21.
Now, I think there was something called the Liberty Way that didn't allow me to go to TC Trotters.
All right, next topic.
So anyway,
after,
some
I
of
meant
our
after,
revenues.
excuse me.
That was then, this is now. And to your point earlier, the reason I always talk about amusement tax
I was
is
contributing to the economy with the amusement.
because I just really think that it talks about our overall economy as well. So I always like to put that in there. Our revenue highlights, non-dedicated revenues are projected to increase an entire $140,000 over 2018 adopted, but that's $158,000 less than 17 actual. And are non-dedicated.
Could you back up just one slide? Just real quick, last little point on this one. Obviously, this is tiny. And so even tripling it is still nothing relative to our city. But all our discussion was not about necessarily how we can get more money, but I think it was really centered around a quality of life issue by people attending these things, by people staying and doing them. I think that's more than increasing so we did kind of get off
Yeah, but
that.
still,
But the quality of life, I think,
that's what retreats are for, and thank
Absolutely.
you all
Yeah.
for letting us get off track and not just spending the entire time talking to us, because we have asked, can we have that healthy reimagining, and if it's off the cuff and spontaneous, I'm not going to gavel you all. It was great talk, and I think there was some copious notes being taken over here.
We enjoy the conversation and questions you have so that we can get those answered. And
And you had some great
any
ideas for us to
ideas.
follow up on, so
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Donna, one other question. The increase from actual
music.
this past year and the previous years is almost $90,000. You've attributed that to the movies, the quality of movies.
And it's also the number of events that are starting to charge cover charge,
Okay.
and our finding out about those and making sure they're assessed and they pay. The special events calendar, there's like 80 special events in a year. And most of those have some type, well, not all, but a lot of those will have some type of a cover charge. And now a lot of the downtown restaurants are doing special events with cover charges. So as that increases, this number goes up a lot. I mean, maybe not in magnitude of dollars, but it is in the percentage of increase.
So of that $90,000 increase, how much of that was because better policing, my word, of the events versus the quality of movies and so forth?
No, I really think it's the quality of movies, the number of events, and that we're making sure we're doing a better job finding out that because of so many more downtown restaurants, there's been so many more downtown special events at these restaurants that are charging a cover charge. So it's just becoming more popular.
So is that
And that's
50%
why.
of the 90,000 or 2/3 of the 90,000?
What's the 90,000 you're talking about?
That's the difference between the adopted and the actual.
Well, the actual wasn't there a one-time payment or no?
No, not in
Not
amusement
Not this one,
tax.
okay.
I'd say 3/4 of that's the theater, is the movie theater.
So that's something we don't get control of.
Right.
But I do think it's a good indicator as to if we're becoming a destination city or not. So I know the numbers are low, but I think it's, the trend is indicative.
What this number is probably, as Don is saying, is most of it is the movies, which have nothing to do with local. I imagine if you break that down too, that would be a nice thing just to see a little chart. Like it's 90% movies and 10%,
That's a
local
good point.
things.
That's a
Okay,
good
yeah,
point. Then
and
you can
I
track
think we
the
can-
other one.
Yeah.
We might be, again.
We have to be
careful about disclosure, but I think we might be able to categorize.
Just the category like movies, or
Yeah, we just have to be careful because there's only,
No, that's
what,
right now.
do we have?
Is-
how many? Two theaters now, so
Is-
we just have to be careful.
Well, and that number's not necessarily consistent. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Good
I
luck.
think that would be, because that the dollar movie closed at that time.
Yeah, my crystal ball broke.
There's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's a good point, because there used to be like 3 movies.
Yeah.
Now that
Like
basically it's
two.
one, and then and another one opened, it's 2.
Or like maybe not movies, but well, I don't know what you do. Hard to get.
I would just say that the riverfront events generated some significant revenue this past summer. We had really good numbers down there.
Do we see corporate sponsorship of some of our venues and that sort of thing?
Absolutely.
I mean, none of the events, but do we see some of the venues, like Miller Center Auditorium becoming the Arriva Miller Center Auditorium, or the,
Oh, do you mean naming rights?
like naming rights and that sort of thing?
That would be a policy we'd have to decide if we could do it even.
I
But
just wonder.
I know years ago, we had a person who paid naming rights for City Stadium for a couple of years, and then that ran out, and there were financial challenges, so it was not very successful. That doesn't mean.
Or even specific events, because I remember like Parks and Rec came with more events being had and that sort of thing. So even if there are city-sponsored type of events, are we seeking, sponsorship, maybe over a 5-year period, that sort of thing?
the Trinae Tweedy annual Christmas parade.
Yeah.
How about that?
I
Or
like
lights in the park. That lights in the park, there was a waiting list to get on that horse and buggy thing. I wanted to take all my grandchildren and give them this experience, but we could only get 4. I mean, that I hope this
Parks
is
and
a
Rec is well
huge
aware
event.
and recalibrating for next year.
Yes,
Well,
because
this
there's
year.
an opportunity there for the light show, and you can get sponsors, if you're not in that business in the nonprofit world, that sponsors the whole event. But if you have to go out and seek and ask. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, I'm just
So-
saying, and I'm just, it might not be a lot of money, but I'm just saying, that could be money that maybe is reappropriated somewhere else, or we're using it, in different ways within the department. That's what I'm asking about.
Just want to say that most, if it's a city event, that the city, because it's a city sponsor, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's, the city is hosting it. But usually for any event, like what Parks and Rec does, if they multicultural festival, international festival, we do seek and they do sponsorships that help to fund those events, or at least the marketing of those events.
And if you get more and more people there, more that are interested, then the companies will want their name out there.
Because it's an advertising.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're working on our special events policy that is fairly outdated. It was written years ago and really does not apply to the world that we live in today.
Good idea.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I said, because we learned also, but we know that businesses and their staff, and they relocate based on the quality of life and kind of what is happening in the city. And so I just think if you get some bigger company vibe names attached to some things, it may be an attraction beyond just the people. It may have, companies looking at our quality of life.
Okay. So, talked a little bit about non-dedicated. Dedicated revenues are projected to increase about $740,000 over 2018 adopted, but it's $916,000 less than 2017 actual. And we're finding out with social services, it's really hard to project whether we're getting our assistance from the federal government or the state government, so there's kind of a swap there. But overall, this is attributed, in 2017, the return of fund balance from schools came back to pay for their pay-go capital, and that was almost $1.2 million. And so that attributes to most of that $916,000. So, and this year the return of fund balance will come to you at the February 13th meeting, and they're requesting that go into their health insurance reserve because they had such a bad year with claims in 2017. So our projected increase over 2018 adopted budget is $880,000, or 4.5%, so 0.5%. So again, these are projected. We're going to continue to look at these, and
What are you
I'll update them.
What are you projecting their return is on February 13th?
It's $464,000, I think.
So 0.5% increase in revenues, and that's a conservative number.
Yes, that's very conservative.
What
But-
would you be willing to put a cap on it also, such as if you would be shocked if it's any more than a 1% increase?
Oh, absolutely. I think the only place I have really to look at this to increase it would be business license, amusement, which isn't going to be a whole lot. Maybe meals tax, maybe, just seeing how the next few months come in.
So we can count on 0.5% as a floor, hopefully?
Yeah, that's.
And then, so 0.75% as a ceiling?
Maybe. I mean, really, I don't think we're going to get much more. I really want to look at business license because I think there might be about $500,000 there. But I've got to see where our assessments come in for 18 before I'm even comfortable throwing out more than that.
We're being very cautious and conservative, but it is based on very informed data.
And the more information we get for 2018 as the months progress, the more confident I can get about my 2019 numbers. Although I will tell you, I have been really surprised at how our numbers have come in for 2018. I really felt like we might have been a little too conservative for 18. Now I thought, I don't feel that way at all. They're squeaking. I don't like that. I like them healthy. But as long as we're right at budget, I'm okay. But I don't want them going below budget.
Mayor, I know the agenda says that we won't take a break, I think, until 11 o'clock, but before we start submitted expenditures in that conversation, I would suggest we take a 15-minute break now.
I think that's fabulous. Thank you.
All right.